Localized odds live from the NFL Combine. It is Landry Locker. This is the Locker Room, number one source for Texans digital content. SNL 4 o'clock Locker Room live stream 10:30. The Combine. I got 5 observations from today. Today we saw DBs and we saw tight ends. Interesting positions when it comes to the Texans. We know that they need another starting safety, most likely to pair with Kalen Bullock. I have a crazy dream about that. Tight end, we know Nick Caley, the new offensive coordinator, has said that he likes tight ends, big tight end guy. They also might have a type. But my number one over observation, and we can sprinkle in the corners as well. I got a knob on that, but we're going to go through the top 5. My number one observation is just the visual of the tight end position in the moment. And when you go to the NFL Combine, you walk into the back room. All the prospects are there. It's one at a time. They're very spread out. So this guy, like Tyler Warren, is at this table. And then Colston Loveland, who, by the way, did say, he told Cody Stoots that he did meet with the Texans. He's at this table. Then you see Arroyo. Then you see Gunnar Helm. And you see all the other guys. And then as they shuffle out, you start to see the other guys that people aren't talking about as much. And you kind of get a visual of the tight end position. You get a feel of where the Texans are at the tight end position. And for me, it's really, really interesting because on one hand, you look at some of these guys and they're mainly pass catchers. Then you look at some of the other guys and they're mainly blockers. I think what the Texans need at this point in that tight end room, especially given the fact that it appears inevitable that Dalton Schultz is going to be gone after this season, they need a guy that can do everything. Brevin Jordan coming back, he's going to be a guy that is mainly a receiver. Cade Stover is going to be a blocker. By the way, spoke to someone that is a big Cade Stover guy. So if you're holding out hope, and I don't know why you would lose hope. He had a pretty good rookie year. He really, really likes what Cade Stover can be. But it seems like the Texans have a type, and they want the guy to be a well-balanced tight end. That's based on just one-day visits. Some people get upset about the question being asked, well, did you visit with the Texans? Did you visit with the Chiefs? I don't understand those people. And I'm talking about you people. Talk to Brooks Cabina, who covers the Eagles. He hates it. John Harris, who covers the Texans, he hates it. Like, all these people hate these questions. It's local reporting. And it's not the end-all, be-all, but I like figuring out who the Texans have and haven't visited with. And I think based on some of those visits and based on the clear picture, they might have a type. We'll get to that in a sec. But first, let's get to ob number 2. Corner appreciation and speculation. Cornerback position is interesting for the Texans because when you start to talk about the draft and you talk about corners, people will say, well, they don't need a corner. They don't need corners. They got 2 of the best young corners in the league. That's absolutely correct. 100% correct. Derek Stingley, top 3 corner in the league. Mari Lassiter, probably the best rookie corner in the league last year. Maybe the best corner duo in the league already. But they don't have a lot of depth. Stingley still does have that injury history. Lassiter missed a couple of games, and they were basically chasing their tail looking for corner depth. So you might not be getting some of these top guys, but you're definitely going to need depth. And that's something that the Texans are going to have to really look at, whether it's the veteran market, whether it's a little bit later on in the draft. It might not look like a pressing need, but they definitely need corner depth. The good news is it's also, when we talk about using premium picks, it's also not one of those things where I could forecast a chess move where they're basically drafting the guy of the future. I think that position is pretty set for the Texans, and you have to feel good about it. There was a guy who's a real intriguing prospect, little guy, Kobe Bryant from Kansas. I asked him, and I think he weighs 112 pounds. I'm not sure. But I asked him, very, very, very intriguing player though, physical, which whenever you talk about a guy being physical, that's that small, you kind of wonder, is that a good thing? Like that's kind of dangerous when you talk about it. But I asked him He was probably one of the more entertaining corners. Asked him, probably day 3 guy, maybe 2, who knows? Probably 3. But I asked him, did you meet with the Texans? He said, yes. I said, how'd it go? This was his exact quote. He said, they said they like dogs. I'm a dog. Kamari Lassiter is one of my boys. He's a total dog. We're both dogs. So that was the close quote. And it does seem very interesting because multiple guys, and there was one instance where unsolicited, one of the prospects, and we'll get into this a little bit more later on the night stream at 10:30, but he said that he liked the Texans defense unsolicited. He said that's probably my favorite style. I like their culture. He elaborated on the players. So the one thing that DeMeco Ryans is doing, and the one thing that DeMeco Ryans has done, and you don't want this to be one-dimensional, but for all the complaining and whining about the offense, which I was a big part of, rightfully so, the defense is very, very well respected, and guys want to be a part of it. And that has happened in a very, very quick time. The DeMeco Ryans defense is something a lot of guys want to be a part of. And Kobe Bryant said they said they like dogs. I'm a dog. So corner, it's not something that they're gonna be looking to draft in the first or second round, I don't think. But when it comes to depth, Kobe Bryant could be a guy to maybe look out for. But again, very, 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 very small. I'll also say this. They would have loved Barron if they would have had a chance out of Texas. That sounds like a DeMeco Ryans, Caserio type of guy. So those are the first 2 obs. The cornerback appreciation and the overall visual of the tight end position live from the NFL Combine. Observation number 3, Jaylen Reed, safety, Penn State. He loves the Texans. He was the guy that brought up that he really, really loves the Texans, loves their style. Now, how does he fit? I don't think it's too bad of a fit. The question is, when would you have to make that fit happen? I don't think round 1. I don't think round 2. Maybe in 3 or day 2, you start thinking about that. I don't know. But we saw, the one thing we do know is regardless of when it is, they have pretty good credibility when it comes to DBs. If the Texans are taking a DB in the DeMeco Caserio era, I think you feel pretty good about it. You had Lassiter last year and you had Bullock last year. So that's something to keep an eye on. Jaylen Reed out of Penn State. He absolutely loves the Texans. Now, this was the most interesting ob of the day. These aren't necessarily in any particular order, but the tight ends that did not meet with the Texans lead me to a question of whether or not the Texans have a type. They didn't meet with Arroyo, and they didn't meet with Gunnar Helm. These are 2 guys who are known for their receiving skills, not necessarily their blocking skills. In fact, Gunnar Helm told me when I asked him about something he'd like to improve, he said last year there was a big focus on being more of a vertical threat, which he did a good job at. And his blocking technique kind of suffered as a result. Now, he didn't want to say he completely ignored it or put less into it. He didn't have to. He did anyways without actually coming out and saying it. So you had that. Arroyo, I mean, he's one of the more explosive receiving options. There's the knee question and all that, but it's early. But they did not meet with either one of these guys who could be considered, as we break it down, as more receiving threats than blocking and complete tight ends. Now, then you look at the guys that they did meet with, and they met with Jackson Halls out of Georgia Tech. Cody Stoots asked him about his meeting, kind of lit up, almost sounded like a kid on Christmas. He said they went over some of the things that he liked to do and all this type of stuff. And this is a guy he's not shy about blocking. He can catch a little bit. And they met with him. They also met with Colston Loveland, who's probably one of the 5 most popular players right now when it comes to 25 overall. They met with him. And they also met with Thomas Fedone. Pronounce that for me. It's Fedone, I think. Yeah. At Nebraska. You got to put a little, it's Fedone. He is a very interesting guy. Now, tell me tell me if this doesn't sound like a story that Nick Caserio or DeMeco Ryans would like. Okay, so he talked about how they didn't really have team captains at Nebraska, but in the offseason, they divided up into teams, into weightlifting teams. And he was the captain of one of the weightlifting teams, said he prides himself on working out in the weight room. And he said his team won both years that they did this. And he takes a lot of pride in blocking. He's actually an underrated receiver. John Harris said he's his most underrated prospect in this draft, or one of them. And I know there's a lot of fake film watchers out there that like to just turn on the highlights. Go ahead and go check out some Fedone tape, and you're probably going to fall in love with this guy. He's an easy guy, and he's also, as we said previously, and the whole point of this is he's a complete tight end, and that is something that I think we need to look at with Fedone, Hawes, and Colston Loveland, which you would have to do in the first round with Loveland. But I think the Texans might have a type when it comes to tight end. Ob 5. There is a very, very, very clear number one safety and a guy that you could envision for the Texans. And I'm going to probably take this a little bit too far. But right now we talk about the Texans secondary. And I think it's unquestioned they have one of the best corner duos in the league. Kamari Lassiter heading into year 2, Derek Stingley heading into year 4. I don't think anyone questions that. They have one of the best young ball hawking safeties in the league in Kalen Bullock. The kid out of South Carolina is safety number 1. There is no doubt about it that he is safety number 1. And there's been a lot of talk about Malachi Starks. It seems like the draft nerds aren't as high on him as maybe the early mock process was. He might actually be there when the Texans pick. I don't know that he pairs as nice with Bullock as Eminori from South Carolina. And you look at him next to the other safeties, 6'3", 225, massive, complete safety. You put him back there with Bullock, Lassiter, and Stingley. I mean, you're talking about one of the best young secondaries in the NFL. And I don't want to say Legion of Boom, but I don't want to not say it if that does happen. I would be shocked, though, if they had that opportunity. So we'll keep an eye on that. Those are the top 5 obs live from the Combine. SNL is going to be live at 4. Locker Room stream at 10:30. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. Be sure to ride along. And be sure to always remember when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Appreciate y'all for